The Fujifilm X100V is probably one of the most hyped cameras for a long time. And if you're lucky enough, you might find one second-hand. But I recently made my switch from my Sony a7 IV to this tiny beast of a camera and tested it thoroughly during my last trip to the Dolomites. So let's find out if the Fujifilm X100V is actually a good camera for a travel photographer who does the work professionally, or is it more a everyday use camera and nice to have. Just to get the most important specs right out of the way, which is mostly boring stuff, the Fujifilm features a 26.1 megapixel APS-C sensor with a fixed lens of 28mm, which is kind of equivalent to a 35mm full frame lens. So it's quite a versatile focal length to use. It's essential to understand that the Fujifilm X100V actually was never designed to replace your mirrorless camera with an interchangeable lens mount. The process or the shooting process with the Fujifilm X100V is a way slower and more deliberate one. It's way more similar to actually shooting film, but this also has some benefits and is actually sometimes quite nice to shoot a bit more intentional. The fixed 35mm focal length definitely can feel limiting at sometimes, and I definitely found myself in the situation wishing for a different option of a focal length while I was shooting in the Dolomites. But on the other hand, it really pushes your creativity to explore some new angles and perspectives, which is also quite nice to develop your photography skills. As someone who primarily focuses on shooting videos more over than stills when I'm traveling, the Fujifilm X100V was actually one of the biggest points why I got it, because of its small form factor, because before I had to carry around my Sony a7 IV plus my Sony a7 III, which actually made me shoot less photos because it was just super inconvenient to always get out the second heavy camera out of my backpack. The Fujifilm X100V literally can fit in my pocket or even in my jacket pocket, and is super convenient to simply pull out and take or snap a few pictures when you see something beautiful, which made my workflow so much more efficient and also so much more enjoyable, and in the end also led me to shooting way more photos than I usually do, which obviously is always better. But now coming to the biggest question, how do the images actually look? I quite frankly didn't have so much high of expectations, even though I watched quite a lot of reviews and most people were literally breathtaking away from the quality of the images. But I honestly gotta say I was positively surprised, and the JPEGs, or I would say the Fujifilm recipes for emulating film, are simply stunning, and it made me really fall in love again with photography. I simply love the workflow of simply taking some beautiful JPEGs, because honestly we all know this, we would never use any JPEGs from Canon cameras or Sony cameras because they're straight off disgusting, to be fair, and we always would shoot in RAW. But there is something about the convenience of simply taking pictures in JPEG, sending them over via the app to the phone, and right away posting them on your social media stories or on your social media posts, which definitely comes in handy from time to time. But also the Fujifilm X100V can shoot in JPEG and RAW at the same time, so if you want the flexibility of pushing and tweaking and editing the photos to your liking, Fujifilm got you covered here as well. Many people forget that the Fujifilm X100V is actually very capable of shooting high quality video with up to 4K 30 frames per second and f-log too. And I honestly gotta say, considering the form factor of the small camera, I was pretty impressed with the videos that came out of the small camera, and I quite enjoyed filming with such a compact size. Even though I gotta say, obviously the switching between photo and video mode is not as convenient as with some of the bigger cameras, but I guess it's something you probably have to live with when it's anyway a photo first camera. But it's nice to have the option to simply sometimes take some memory videos if you want to. For a person that constantly loves shooting on film, there definitely was a really huge appeal for me to switching to the Fujifilm X100V, especially after all the raising film stock prices. And I gotta say, Fujifilm did a really great job of emulating film. It's super accurate, and I was really blown away how close some of the film emulations look to actual real film. So if you already own a Fujifilm X100V or you're planning on getting one, here are a few Fujifilm recipes that are definitely some of my favorites, with some sample images. The Fujifilm X100V is definitely a fantastic camera, especially for people who like a more slower approach to photography and want to shoot more intentional, or for the people that have a background in film photography. It's versatile, produces stunning images, and has a very efficient and very enjoyable workflow, especially when it comes to the film simulations. However, this camera might not be suited for professional photographers, as the limiting flexibility of focal lengths might be a point, as well as the reliable autofocus. And often you're also more prone to having a fast-paced shooting style, which the Fujifilm X100V definitely won't give you. Personally, I have no regrets of selling my Sony a7 IV for the Fujifilm X100V, as the workflow just simply fits better into my shooting style, as during my trips the focus is mainly on videos and not on photos, and the Fujifilm X100V allows me to integrate taking still pictures way more seamlessly than the Sony a7 IV did. So should you get the Fujifilm X100V in 2023? And the answer highly depends on your workflow, your photography style and your needs as a photographer itself. I personally think the Fujifilm X100V is a great everyday camera and is very nice for social media as well, and for people who prefer a more slower paced shooting style that is similar to film photography, as well as the appeal of film photography images. However, it might not be the best tool for professional photographers, even though the image quality is quite superb. It's also very important to keep in mind that Fujifilm is rumored to release the predecessor of the Fujifilm X100V in early to mid 2024. So if you're curious about what other equipment I use to produce high quality travel content, make sure to check out this video for some more info.